The world is dying. All around us, there's nothing but death and destruction. The ash of the old world dissipates in the wind, and a new one rises. One born of fire. But I only look upon the flames and laugh, because this movie has 9 movie stars, and no one cares. What makes a good critic? There's a couple answers, but I think one that most people will agree with is consistency. Not in the sense that they never change their opinion, but rather that the best critics can be understood. Do they care about plot, theming, cinematography, how woke the movie is? All of these are equally as important. Introducing I Do Know Nothing. It's a weird name, but you're watching a guy called Sir Never Give Up. Now this guy has some different ideas about what makes a good critic. A rigid, structured rating system.
Rating a movie can be a task that is more random than finding the cure for cringe, because we all have that experience of thinking about what our rating for the movie is while we're watching it, or maybe our rating for it is immediate and requires no thought process at all. However, I believe there needs to be a hardcore structure in regards to what specific ratings mean when it comes to watching a movie. And I'm here to do that. I'm here to tell you how to properly rate a movie, more specifically through the 5-star structure.
I knew the second I heard this guy confidently say that he knows the proper way to rate a movie, I was hooked. I Do Know Nothing is a content farm. He used to make plot summaries of superhero comics.
This is when Spider-Man experienced 9/11.
Now those videos were bad, but I don't read superhero comics, so I don't care. Yes, he does have a gimmick where he punches pillows. I have no idea what that's about. I did find this one clip that was pretty funny.
We are only 10% deep in this pool of fun and juicy comics, because now Superman is gay. Not Superboy, not Supergirl, not Superwoman, none of that. Superman is gay. More specifically, Superman's son, John Kent, who is actually bisexual.
Okay, so it's not Superman then. It's his son. That's a different character.
But I'm not some peasant. I'm not some homophobic degenerate who will look at 2 men kissing and start turning into a zombie. No. In fact, I will read this comic with you guys, and we will make a verdict together about whether or not Superman being gay had some purpose or was just to suck off the LGBTQ+ community.
Superman, we need you to kiss both this man and woman within 5 seconds of each other. I'm not bisexual. But my son is! Ah, the day is saved because Superman is now bisexual. What does he mean, did it have a purpose? Does Superman being straight have a purpose? What is he talking about? After making these comic book videos, he seems to have had a change of heart, quickly pivoting to movie reviews.
Additionally, there are a lot of side missions in this movie that your hero has to take on, and normally I'm not the biggest fan of side missions in films. I'd rather have the story just be as linear as possible. For example, The Marvels is a cum dumpster that suffers from useless side missions.
Scratch that. Quickly pivoting to the exact same content, but about movies. Should you watch a movie at 2 times speed? Do people do that?
However, whenever there is a moment in our pointless lives where we can spend a few hours watching a movie, of course we're going to take advantage of that. But if you value time so much to the point where you're going to watch a movie at 2x speed, then you have no right to watch that movie.
This is a 10-second clip that sums up the whole video. What is the point? You're engaging with a group of people who clearly don't really care about films?
Because first of all, this may sound kind of pretentious, but if you're watching a movie at turbo insano speeds, I don't want to hear your opinions of the movie.
This might sound kind of pretentious, but I think you should be strung up in the fucking town center on a noose if you watch movies in 2 times speed, but that's just me. His whole channel is pretty much dedicated to making these kinds of videos, very quickly churned out with less than stellar writing.
This isn't a carbon copy of John Wick, because John Wick had to deal with criminals of connected power, whereas Monkey Man is dealing with underground crime and assassins.
John Wick is an assassin. That's his job. Also, what's the difference between underground crime and connected criminals? Movies are allowed to be similar. It's not an insult to say that Monkey Man is clearly influenced by John Wick. But there's more. If you watch any video he's ever made, he makes this more something than a something else joke constantly.
A FNAF movie is something that people get more hyped than finding the cure for acne, but as time goes on, he realizes that this mutated Chuck E. Cheese warehouse is more creepy and dark than a festering nostril. But everything was more predictable than 2 Girls, 1 Cup, because jam-packing multiple games and lore into one movie is more difficult than trying to get a girl to like you. All the nerdy jocks who have been studying this lore more than their SATs.
These are all from the same video. Surprisingly, when you make reviewing into a content farm, you get the same bad jokes over and over again.
Because a lot of them are more boring than watching a plant grow, or made the sloppy monster mash of a Netflix film look more goofy than the Scooby-Doo movies, save itself from being more generic than a cardboard box. It just looks more magical than having white teeth. I don't watch the Golden Globes because it's not an award show I care about, and they have more categories than the categories on an adult website. But when these problems and immediate solutions are happening more often than remastered versions of GTA, the reveal is more obvious than seeing your nose hair sticking out. It didn't need to go so gusto-busto on the jokes because it reached a point where everything just became unfunny and they were trying too hard.
Does he not have any other material?
Even if you have surface level knowledge of the game. So yeah, 3 stars.
3 stars. 3 stars for Five Nights at Freddy's. Better than Kong Skull Island. Better than John Wick 2. Better than Monsters fucking Inc. And just in case you're wondering, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is rated at the same level as The Shape of Water, Drive, The Zone of Interest, Battleship Potemkin, Shark Boy, and Lava Girl. Yeah, I tried to sneak that last one in. That didn't fucking work.
Even when these goobers are underwater, she's more useful than the donkey whose bread and butter is stuff that has to do with water. And personally, I think the movie would have been more interesting if it gave the spotlight to a more useless pup like Marshall or Zuma. But they probably did Sky because she is a popular pup and hooks onto the retinas of little boys.
Okay, bit of a non sequitur, but what the fuck did he just say about the Paw Patrol dog? Is he speaking from experience?
Speaking of females,
Paw Patrol
universe might also be classified as hot chick heaven because there's such a mess of very beautiful and tough women that it'll make you love the franchise even more.
The problem with his writing is made more apparent by how inconsistent his own opinions are.
But if you think about it, this is our fault that Disney is making all of these sequels. Because guess what? For the last few years, Disney has listened to fans and tried to make as many original animated movies for years.
And then theoretically, the next video you could click on could be this one.
But in all honesty, if this movie is bad, it's because of the studio. Because they should not be tinkering with a movie for this long with the hopes of making it perfect for audiences.
So obviously all these videos are made for inflammatory clicks, depending on whatever the more contentious opinion is. In one breath, it's our fault a studio makes bad movies, and in the next, it's the studio's fault if they make bad movies. It really isn't opinionated content then. If you're always a contrarian, then you don't have an opinion. Again, what is more important than a critic with a consistent voice? Well, besides one that actually enjoys watching movies?
Now, usually when it comes to watching old movies, I tend to avoid them because in my experience, they're always so slow and it takes a long time for old movies to actually get to their meat and jelly beans.
He is talking about the 1996 horror film Scream, a film that is not even 30 years old.
I always found horror movies more silly than kissing a fish when you catch it.
Yeah, you already did that one. Does this guy only know one kind of joke?
And plus, the other critiques people have for this film were super film snobby. Like, look at the Rotten Tomato score. These bum-suckling weasels clearly don't understand movies well enough to at least be fair with it.
Oh, I'm sorry that the critics didn't like Gran Turismo. Must be a little too recent for them. Maybe give them a few decades. His attitude does explain why the earliest movie he gave 5 stars to is The Empire Strikes Back, and he only gave A New Hope 4, by the way. What rating did he give Blade Runner? What an overrated movie. As I'm looking at this rating on Letterboxd, and my eyeline is Space Jam. 3.5 stars.
However, movies like 50 Shades of Grey, despite it being so incredibly putrid, I have to give the movie credit for convincing me to dedicate my time to watch the entirety of your film minus the credits. The same can be said for Captain Marvel, Justice League, or Smurfs 2. I hated these movies, but I finished it, so it deserves at least 1 star.
But you gave 50 Shades of Grey half a star. Like, you did give Captain Marvel and Smurfs 2 1 star. So what about 50 Shades of Grey? Also, yes, he did give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a 1 star. Even Don't Look Up is fucking pushing it.
Now, anything between 1.5 stars and 3 stars, that's all game. Rate it however you want, give brownie points for good things about the movie, and take away stars for stinky things about it.
Apparently, Blade Runner doesn't have a single positive, not a good thing to say in the world about that movie.
However, if you rate a movie exactly 3.5 stars, that means that this is a movie that you think is fantastic and was constructed super well overall, but the reason why it's only 3.5 stars is because you don't see yourself watching this movie again.
Palm Springs, sorry to bother you. Nope, you're never gonna watch these movies again? And you think the Super Mario movie is better than all of them?
But anything between 4 stars and 5 stars, this is the section where the movie you just watched is so good that you would watch it again. You would shove it down people's esophagus and make sure that they watch it. 4 and 5 star movies are the magnum opus of cinema to you.
Spider-Man No Way Home. The problem here isn't this guy's opinion on Monsters, Inc., although that is a travesty. It's the weird pontification. You know, a review is a review is a review. It's not some deep sociological concept. It's your opinion on the cat in the hat. I honestly think that rating systems are stupid and boil down what can be a complicated opinion on art into a one-and-done, rigid system. Does I Do Know Nothing have a genuine reason for not liking Blade Runner? I don't know. I just saw a number on a screen and a quippy sentence. This is what content farms do. They take formats that the viewer likes and replicates them on overdrive. I quite like reviews as a format. That's why I make them. But when someone who seems as cynical as this guy does it, it just kind of ruins all the fun of discussing things. It's sad. A reviewer's strength is in their voice, their consistency. You should find a reviewer who aligns with your taste in media, or at least has an interesting viewpoint. When you make reviewing into a content farm, then you get an inconsistent voice who substantially doesn't have any opinions. Goodbye.